conduct the shootings, which left 2 killed. It's interesting because on one hand, I understand that the distinction needs to be made. And with that said, I still appreciate a response from the authorities because this has gone beyond a case where they had official police duties. Potentially, the targets / deceased / victims were clearly criminal elements or connected to criminal elements, and it's an official act by the police and blah, 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 blah. On some level, that's more technical and complicated. And also, on some level, well, they're acting as agents of the state. So there's a little bit of a difference of responsibility there. In this case, he's not acting as an agent of the state. In fact, it's not even known if the individuals knew he was a police officer or not. Therefore, he was acting in a private capacity. So to what extent now is this going to impact members of the police service with regards to how they could use private firearms, what they could do in their off-duty hours, what they may or may not have to declare? I mean, ironically, it's not necessarily going to be about use of force. Maybe that might be a consideration tacked on by the way, but this isn't a use of force issue when on official duty. This is a police officer in a private capacity doing something that has, well, I mean, 2 people are dead. And therein lies the flip side, however. On some level, I'm not too sure if we will get a good resolution just from this, right? The investigation really is what we need, not necessarily a review. Yes, to some extent that might be pertinent, but he wasn't acting as an agent of the state, so the authority of the National Security Council to address this matter will potentially be limited. So don't expect don't expect a whole lot out of this. There might be some clarifications and some procedures might change. It might actually inconvenience police officers, but for the most part, I don't necessarily expect a lot of difference for the average citizen with regards to that. The investigation is what matters. And the thing about it is, I do, however, find it a bit disappointing that this level of concern was not shown with regards to other examples of police conduct, that is to say, conduct of officers while on duty. His superiors, for the most part, have limited responsibility over this matter, right? The chain of command has limited responsibility. They might still have some, there might still be some regulations, maybe he broke, but that's secondary to this, right? But of all things, an officer involved in an incident, now he is an officer, but again, it's in a private capacity. This is what gets the National Security Council moving to review police laws, regulations, and practices surrounding certain operations. Because it's certain operations like TTPS. So I don't know if that includes, the private actions of officers, if they're going to touch that, or if they're actually looking at service policies. But this is, I mean, it's just interesting that this is what they respond to. However, I'm not going to knock it. At the end of the day, hopefully something positive comes out of this. The irony, of course, is that expectations are low. What do we expect to come out of it? I don't know, usually nothing. Even if they make statements and policy decisions and changes, we already see where certain policies of the TTPS that has been tried to be instituted by the higher-ups, from the commissioner all the way down to the supervisors and senior officers in the station. And officers still don't want to do it, like just taking reports. Taking reports, a fundamental aspect of the job, and some officers are so lazy they don't even want to do that. They're already desk riding, not out on patrol, some of them. All right, let's move on to the next story. Now, with regards to the fight on crime, it's not all doom and gloom, maybe. The Minister of National Security and the Ambassador of China to Trinidad and Tobago signed a MOU with regards to the funding and construction of a new forensic science center to be built at Farm Road, St. Joseph. I don't believe we will have the full details of the capabilities of the center or the capacity of the center. One of the issues we have is what few forensic capabilities we do have. I believe it's not just a lack of capability that might be a concern, it's a lack of capacity. So here's the minister doing something, there's the minister right there, doing something positive, hopefully. Now, with that said, my one concern, Mr. Minister, and I hope that you maybe went through the details a bit more. We might not know them, right? I mean, they're saying it's a Romeo location, an expansion for the staff and activities, right? He's anticipating greater demands. That's all well and good. That's all well and good. He's hoping it contributes to faster prosecutions. Need I remind you about one NAPA, National Academy of the Performing Arts. And when that was delivered to us, it had, and still has in many cases, or some cases, fundamental flaws in its design. Fundamental flaws in NAPA. In fact, the irony is I keep saying with regards to the ferry service, the PNM, Keith Rowley administration, when it now came into power, they bungled the communication of that so badly, it made it look like issues from the ferry service that they met were due to them. Well, with regards to NAPA, the then People's Partnership Administration bungled the communication so badly, to some extent, it made them look like they're responsible for some of the many technical limitations. And those within the artist community who have experience, they will know what I'm talking about. NAPA is, for all intents and purposes, nowhere near as good as it should be. And now I have to wonder, because remember, is what China would have for a forensic center to meet their needs with regards to the circumstances of their culture, their specific crime situation, their specific laws and regulations, will it translate into a forensic science center that's suitable for our needs? That's point number one. Point number two, I just don't want another NAPA. I just don't want another facility with fundamental logistical flaws and technical flaws that prevent it from being a serious place to hold major theater productions. At least that's what it was, though in some cases the flaws are to the building itself and cannot be easily fixed. And then there's the fact that you need special equipment just to clean the outside of the building because of its weird shape. But let's enough about that. Let's move on again to the next story here. This is something that's interesting here. There is a case where a High Court judge has ordered compensation. It looks like $500,000 to $1 million if interest is ordered and tallied. Justice Jacqueline Wilson ordered for Mr. Brian Lewis because, let's just get the quote. It is suggested that the charges were fabricated. The total absence of evidence to support the charges suggests that in laying them, the officers acted in an oppressive manner, an arbitrary manner. Here's what I find interesting in this entire situation. Mr. Lewis's lead attorney is one MP Keith Scotland, who I believe is the head of the Joint Select Committee. Where's Mr. Keith Scotland? There he is, head of the Joint Select Committee on National Security. He may also be a minister. I'm not too sure if he's a minister in the Ministry of National Security. So, and one of the things that Mr. Scotland argued on behalf of his client And again, the state admitted liability in a malicious prosecution claim where the head of the Joint Select Committee of National Security was the lead counsel, was the lead attorney for the plaintiff against the state. That's interesting. Mr. Scotland submitted evidence of deplorable conditions at the maximum security prison, Golden Grove, Aruka, which his client had to endure. The head of the Joint Select Committee is well aware of the situation in the prison. He submitted evidence in a trial that allowed his client to win a malicious prosecution case. So my question is, first of all, this is weird, right? I don't know if I've ever, I mean, maybe it's happened before in Trinidad, and I'm just unaware. But I don't know if I've ever heard of a sitting MP being the lead attorney in a case against the state, and then he himself is part of the whole overall apparatus of governing the national security apparatus, of which prisons falls under him. So what am I supposed to think about this? Why, I mean, it's nice. You have anecdotal evidence that you're well aware of that potentially could point to some issues with the prison service. And wait, let's just, the ruling of the judge, let's not forget, because he's the lead attorney, one would imagine he would be there when she gave the ruling, suggested that the charges were fabricated because of the total absence of evidence. Are we going to see more of this in the Joint Select Committee? Are we going to see follow-ups of this? I don't know. I'm just saying. I'll leave that there. I don't want to go any further than that. All right, let's move on quick, real fast. I want to get through these next two stories. First, Tobago, they have set a new record for murders. Unfortunately, after setting a record, I believe at 11 yesterday, then early in the AM, 1 a.m., 2 more murders happened. The reason why I wanted to bring this up, and this kind of hits just a little bit close to home, is that the second 2 murders, now the first one was already horrific, sorry, I would like to acknowledge. I believe the victim was potentially burnt to death. And then the perpetrator, it may have been a domestic situation, attempted to try to claim he discovered the body to the police and lead them to the body, but they figured it out when his story was not adding up and they arrested him. We wait to see if eventually he will be convicted of that or what the evidence says, right? Don't want to just pass judgment. But the 2 others that were killed later in Tobago, it was a spray and pray at a bar. I don't want to name the bar. Apparently, one of the deceased was the target because he's a known gang member of the 6th gang, apparently, in Tobago. And then the other victim was just an unfortunate bystander, collateral damage to spray and pray. They just spray bullets into the group and wrong place, wrong time. And why it hits home is, on a couple of occasions, I've been to that bar, right? This is not some bar in some hot spot, whatever. No, this is a bar just off of Milford Road. A lot of people could potentially be at that bar. Right? Now, obviously, it's not a place that I frequent, but still. And I'm reminded of the acquaintance of mine who lost his brother in a similar situation just up St. Anne's. This could touch you at any point in time. We need to understand that. All right, last story before I end up going way too late. I'll try and be quick with this. So, essentially, the government is unaware of the Senator Wade Mark. Senator Wade Mark had some questions for the government. And basically about the United States' concern over a spate of extrajudicial killings. And for whatever reason, that's Senator Wade Mark, the Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Emery Brown, for that reason, he answered on behalf of the Ministry of National Security, where he said that the Ministry of National Security was unaware of these claims. Now, there was a report in the Express, I believe, in the Express with regards to the United States having concerns about extrajudicial killings. But I do believe that was all the way in March. So to some extent, yes, I get it. Maybe there was no claims expressed recently, but they existed, and I do think it's a fair question for the senator to pose, as well as to assume that United States fears still remain. Then, of course, the president of the Senate, Nigel Freitas, he decided to say that because Senator Mark was trying to press the issue, he disallowed the question of, well, is the Ministry of National Security unaware and unfamiliar with the concerns referenced, right? That is to say, United States concerns. And the president of the Senate said, we're not going to allow that. Why? I don't understand what is the basis of Dr. Amy Brown's response that the ministry, first of all, it's not the Ministry of National Security, that the Ministry of National Security is unaware, that's what the answer is, unaware, unfamiliar with the concerns referenced by the United States. Then it went on, right? Opposition Senator David Naked, he threw out the question, is the minister aware that the English cricket team was sequestered? Now, he asked, sequestered at the hotel because of the coming at them. I'm not entirely sure if that was mistyped. And the president of the Senate disallowed it. It is so far outside of what is relevant. And then the finance minister, Colin Burt, he added on to that. He just made a comment in his answer to another question. I was astonished at that last supplemental about a cricket team. Well, I don't know. Since the cricket team was sequestered because of murders occurring, not too far from the hotel they were staying in, there's an advisory to their team not to go out on their own, and I'm assuming sequestered means now they were told that they cannot go out on their own because of crime in the country. This one, first of all, this is the first time I'm disappointed in Dr. Amy Brown with his non-answer. And the fact that his non-answer reveals or partially reveals when stacked with that of the Minister of Finance as well as the President of the Senate, that the government just, I don't know, like they jumped the shark on this one, they missed the boat. Because for the Minister of Finance to say, a cricket team. Well, no, it's not about a cricket team. It's the fact that there's a newspaper report in the UK talking about our crime situation and the impact it had on their cricket team. If that's not relevant to our crime situation, I don't know. I don't know if bad foreign press is not relevant to you. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll switch gears and welcome the good lady herself. Stay tuned.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Let the Home Store turn your house into a home you love. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. And just for you this Christmas, come check us out for great gift ideas and all your Christmas decorations.
6 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Chaguanas, C3 Center Branch, Christmas Store at C3 San Fernando, and Eastgate Mall, Trin City.
Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
It comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movie Town, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and let's get straight into it. We have the good lady here herself for her actual scheduled contribution to the program, and we're not going to necessarily, well, we are going to talk about politics, but we're going to talk about a very important technical matter. And I said it's a story that, well, it should be ongoing, but it might be forgotten, and that is to do with the Industrial Court President and the new appointments, which by default kind of kicked the old president to the curb, so to speak, over the telephone.
And I have to tell you again, you know, and that starts, let me start first by saying that our president, Christine Kanglu, I knew her both as a colleague, and even before that, and I certainly knew her husband, Kern Garcia, as one of my former students and a valedictorian, and in those days when there were not that many students, I got to know him very well. So clearly whatever I say here, it's not personal, because if it were personal, I wouldn't say it. I would say it. But then my responsibility, I feel, is to the country rather than to individuals. So let's start. What I really said to Sean, I wanted to start with a broader perspective and then drill down on the current imbroglio regarding Deborah Thomas Felix, which was the past president until a few days ago of the Industrial Court, a position she held from 2011 to 2023 and has been replaced. No making any allegations, nothing against the new president. She obviously well qualified, had a seal, 20 years as a judge from my understanding, and she is now the new president. So before I go into that, I think it's important to start from where I had started some time ago when we had heard about the appointment of Christine Kanglu as the president. And I said from the very beginning, it has nothing to do with her personally. If it were that, then she should be the president. But the fact of the matter is, although we have inherited the Westminster model, we really have not completely done so. In other words, under the Westminster model, when is the Queen or now the King talk? Opening a parliament and have a Christmas message. Other than that, they all keep quiet and have nothing to say about politics, and that is those are their instructions. Our Republican Constitution is not that clear, and that is why I am of the view that the fit for purpose point stands. It is true that under the Constitution, Section 24 in particular, does allow a person to be appointed president directly from either the House of Representatives or the Senate, and those positions become vacant. It's clear that you can do that. So there's no question that the government could not do that. They could do that. However, having said that they can do that, you have to say to yourself, well, if it's just a ceremonial position, what does it matter? Really, are you like the Queen or the King now? What does it matter? But therein lies the difference. It is true, let me just say first, that under Section 80 of the Constitution, it is not a question of whether the president wants to or doesn't want to. Section 80 makes it very clear that the president shall exercise a function under the Constitution or any other law, which of course means the Industrial Relations Act in this case we're going to be talking about, shall act in accordance with the advice of Cabinet. And they have some exceptions. In his discretion, or after consultation, or in accordance with advice. But the key to those last two, which really tells you, how much does that really matter? Because it goes on to tell you whether she acted or he acted in accordance with advice or after consultation. You cannot go to court to inquire whether that has been done or not. But when it comes to Cabinet, that is not included. So in other words, I am not saying it's not, this has nothing to do with the president. I'm just saying the way that the Constitution is set up. It seems the question of advice or consultation with others other than the Cabinet, really and truly, there's no way. And we've had the case of Bain and two cases in which it went to court and that point was made. You cannot inquire whether or not the consultation occurred. I think it had to do with the appointment of persons to public service commissions when the then government lost government and had done this appointment just on the eve of the change of government. So the point about it is that you really can't go behind whether that consultation took place. You can't go behind whether the advice took place. But you can go behind whether the president acted in accordance with the Cabinet's instructions. So, but having said that, we then say, well, then is she a lame duck? No, our president is not a lame duck, and there are provisions that say that she's not a lame duck, and we've seen it tested here in this country. One of them, which wasn't tested but is there, is Section 8 of the Constitution, state of emergency. Not only must the president proclaim it, there's a proclamation, but unless the president in a written declaration states that he or she is satisfied that the conditions for state of emergency exist, the state of emergency does not take effect. That's a very powerful power. That's an extremely powerful power. That is not a ceremonial head. We know that the president can appoint 9 independent senators to the Senate, so there's another opportunity for power, exercising discretion, which cannot say that he or she is just ceremonial in nature. And of course, when we had that situation of the 1818, normally it would be clear who would be the winner, because according to, I think, Section 76, is the leader of the party that supposedly supported the majority of the members of the House of Representatives shall be appointed by the president as the prime minister. But where it is not clear, which is what happened some years ago, it is for the president in his own judgment to determine which of the parties has he supported majority, where you have a situation of a tie. And we know what was the outcome of that. The then government became the opposition, and the opposition became the government. So for anyone to say that our president is just a ceremonial head, I've given you 3 examples. The others, with the appointment of the opposition leader, again, in her judgment or in his judgment, can appoint or revoke, depending on whether he or she, in his or her judgment, has he supported the majority of the members of the opposition. So you cannot say that our president has no powers that the Constitution provides. And therefore, the argument of fit for purpose was what I made my argument on. Not anything to do with the individual, not at all, absolutely not. But I knew that it was not a good thing. Why? Because her father-in-law was just recently the Minister of Education at the age of, must be over 70. I don't know how old he was, but he was kind of old anyhow. And apart from that, we know that her uncle-in-law is a man who wields tremendous, apparently wields tremendous power within this cabinet of this government. On top of that, she was leading member, I say leading member, of, when I came in as a minister, certainly she had been in office as a PNM minister, having won her seat, not as a senator, but as a member of parliament, which is the difference. She won her seat and had been there, and I think on the last go around in Point de Paix, well, she lost her seat, but she went up as a member of parliament, and then when we came into power, as the PNM came into power, so saying we, when the PNM came into power, they made a president. So it is not a person who does not have very strong, very, very strong political connections with the party. So, as a government, should you put someone like that? You never heard any confusion with Noor Hassan Ali. You heard confusion with, what's her name? The one that just...
Previous?
Yeah. Paula May Weeks.
Paula May Weeks.
Yeah, and you see, this is the thing. And then she became mute. She became mute after all that confusion and commission thing. She became mute. And you know what happened with this president? Within months, the confusion started. Appointing her own husband and her brother, senior counsel. I am not saying they're not worthy of it, But you know how we say in Trinidad? Rather than say the optics, how it go look? How it go look? Your own husband, whom I like and who I feel is very capable, no question in my mind, but leave it to the former president. How does it look? She's almost become she has almost become mute.
That is to say, they should have let Paula May Weeks
Absolutely.
give him senior counsel status,
yes.
as opposed to his wife giving it to him.
Yes.
Now I understand maybe they...
I'm talking about the optics, huh?
Yeah, the optics, because I can understand they might have liked, and my wife gets to appoint me as senior counsel, but...
A tea party?
Exactly. This is serious business. This is not just a personal...
But then if that was the thinking that went behind it, then the more...
That's my supposition.
Wait, okay, and if that supposition has any value, even more so it should not have been done. Because you obviously do not understand your responsibility to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. You obviously cannot understand how you took your credibility as a president and you compromised it by that. You obviously did not understand that. For you to have done it, for the government to have offered it to you, and for you to have said yes, you obviously could not understand how it looked, but you paid the price because you have become very mute. You will tell us all about tea parties. So now comes to Deborah Thomas Felix, for whom I hold no brief. I hold no brief for her. But the Law Association has made a point, and I just want to say, and in fact I spoke to someone, and let's just say I spoke to other persons to make sure that I hadn't gotten it wrong. And they themselves got it wrong because they didn't even know what the legislation said. So I had to go and check it back to make sure I hadn't gotten it wrong myself. So we just said that under Section 80, if the cabinet tells you to do this, you got to do it. So the cabinet obviously would have instructed her with the appointment of persons in the industrial court. Now the precursor to the IRA, Industrial Relations Act, was the Industrial Stabilization Act, which started the industrial court. And there's a lot of and the workers were in, on both sides, a lot of strike action, and right. So they started the industrial court And what they did, what they had to change, was that the minister was the one who would decide whether they could strike or lock out. He had to make that determination. If he felt no, it went straight to industrial court. So it was a way of stopping the unions from striking.
Right.
And so that was replaced by the IRA, just as a little background. But the key about the composition of the court, it is in relation to the president, and the president that the president of the industrial court, that the president of our republic, Christine Kangaloo, is required to, after consultation with the Chief Justice, to make the appointment. But this is the point that I think has to be made. There are two distinctions made with the president, and that's who Deborah Thomas Felix was. She was the president from 2011 to 2023.
Of the industrial court.
And of the industrial court. But I don't think she was having any...
No, I just want... so if you guys don't mix it up, right? We're speaking about the president of Trinidad and Tobago and the president of the industrial court.
And she was president of the industrial court from 2011 to 2023. Now, it is true you get a term of office for 3, maximum 5 years. The key thing is the reappointment. And why they're saying, and that's why the Law Association has made a very good point. If you want to be reappointed, are you under a certain amount of pressure not to exercise the true judicial independence that a member of a judge of the Supreme Court has? You cannot remove a judge of the Supreme Court easily. You have to set up a tribunal, and it's not easy. It's under the Constitution. And if you want to remove the Chief Justice, the only person that has any authority under Section 137 of the Constitution regarding the Chief Justice is our Prime Minister. He can decide whether to set up a tribunal to look into whether there's good grounds for his or her removal. And it's only after the tribunal has sat and made its determination, no, well, that's the end of it, or yes, it goes to the Privy Council, and the final decision goes to the Privy Council. But the point I'm making is, when it comes to the Chief Justice, his appointment or disappointment lies in the hands of the Prime Minister. Understand that. And that is what the Law Association is sort of indicating, that not saying anything against the Chief Justice, but how it could look.
Yes.
How it could look. So when it says, this is where the issue with Deborah Thomas Felix becomes really kind of messy and not very clear, and does not reflect well on, President of the Republic. The thing about it, one, the way it was done. Apparently, she's not in the country. You make a telephone call and tell her contract is not renewed, which they can. I mean, you have a contract, so it's a contract. But I don't want to get myself in too much confusion, but I don't know if you remember Marcia Caesar. Right. Yes. I am not giving my opinion yea or nay, but apparently, from what was reported, is that she had a number of matters that had been part heard.
Yes.
And according to the Chief Justice, she did not reveal to him the number of matters that were part heard. Because I know from other persons who are judges that if the Chief Justice is thinking of appointing them, he would tell them in advance, listen, you need to, all your part heard judgments, part heard matters, you've got to clean them up, because I can't appoint you until that is done. Right? And it's only when that is done, I can consider you. That's my understanding. And in her case, apparently, according to Chief Justice, he didn't know she had so many matters outstanding, as he would not have made that appointment then. He might have made it 2 years down the line, or whatever. And we know the famous Achille Charles case, and that's what happened to him. It was part heard before her, after 5 years in remand, and because of her, that whole kerfuffle, as Trump likes to say, was a good word, it had to start afresh. And when it was heard afresh by the acting chief magistrate, she said there was not enough evidence for him to be there in the first place. 7 years of his life gone. All right? So the point I'm making here is that 2 days before her appointment comes to end, term of office comes to end, you then advise her, no, this is the kicker. This is the point I'm making. There are 2 ways in which you appoint a president. You either do it by a designation of a judge of the Supreme Court is designated with his consent by the President of the Republic after consultation with the Chief Justice. But this is the part. But a judge designated by the president of the court shall not be deemed to have ceased to hold his substantive office of judge of the Supreme Court by reason only of such designation. In other words, he's still working in the Supreme Court. He leads the Supreme Court for a few years, but he can go back.
Right.
The other way is appointment. Now, if you're appointed, it's the person who could have been a judge of the Supreme Court is not one, but had all the qualities to be appointed. So it would not apply to that person. So that designation and appointment, there is a difference. Appointment, come to the end of the period, your appointment has come to an end. When you're designated, it doesn't mean that at the end of the period you have no job. You just go back to the Supreme Court. Okay, and why is that important? This is why it is important. That is why the whole situation with Deborah Thomas Felix was worrisome, because according to JTUM, Joint Trade Union Movement,
yes,
Kerwin Garcia has acted in several matters with state enterprises on behalf of the government. And I'm sure he's very competent to do so. I've already said that many times. But these are big organizations, WASA, Caribbean Airlines. These are the companies that they've called out. So it's not 2 workers, it's almost thousands of workers that have an impact on the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. So on productivity, the whole thing.
He's a lawyer.
A lawyer acting on behalf of the government's interest.
The government's interest in labor matters.
In industrial court. And he happens to be the husband of
the person
the President of the Republic.
Right. He's the husband. No, let's to be clear, he's the husband of the person that just appointed somebody new to the industrial court.
That's correct.
As president of the industrial court. And essentially removed indirectly the outgoing president of the industrial court.
What is the issue there is this. They are saying, I'm just saying what was reported, is that the PSA, Public Service Association, said that they will be for a panel which was headed by Deborah Thomas Felix.
Yes.
Right? So it was an ongoing battle.
But this is a big one, because this is the Revenue Authority situation, right? Which I'm not necessarily on the union side, but they deserve, we're not talking about the situation itself, but they deserve a fair trial. And it was before the industrial court, headed by the previous...
And it was being heard.
It was being heard. So now what's the status of that?
Okay, so this is my point. I'm making the point. And he was representing the government against, as he represented the NIB against the union in the matter, PSA, okay? And the argument that was, she headed the panel, that is the Deborah Thomas Felix, she headed the panel. And the argument was that there had been an agreement that they would give them 9%. And that that there was, when they were negotiating the collective agreement, there was an agreement that the next thing that they would get 9%. That is all. I'm not saying it wrong, I'm not saying it right. I'm saying that is what is before the court. And I'm saying the person who was heading that panel was the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, who was not designated but appointed. But so somebody could argue, well, your term came to an end, what you're so vexed for? You know, you knew it was coming to end, right? This is the...
Sorry, when you just said President of the Republic, it's President of the Industrial Court was heading the panel.
Yes, President of the Industrial Court.
Has now come
had come to an end. So somebody could say, as I was told by an individual, you know your term coming to an end, what you're so vexed for? You knew that would have happened. And of course, that's not the argument of law association. They're talking about the argument because it's 3, a minimum of 3, maximum of 5. Is the reappointment. So you want to get reappointed, you don't want to get on the wrong side. But that's not the argument here. The argument here is that Kerwin Garcia, the husband of the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, was acting on behalf of the National Insurance Board, which is a state enterprise, in a matter against the PSA, in which Deborah Thomas Felix, until a few days ago, was president of the Industrial Court, and she headed that panel. And this is what this is my point. So she is not designated from the Supreme Court, she was appointed.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And this is the point. Section 4.9 of that same section, we come right down. And I'll say the end. Notwithstanding that his term of office has expired, a member other than one designated under Section 4.3A1, remember why? Because they never left the job, right? May, with the permission of the President of Trinidad and Tobago, because this is IRA before we became a republic, President of Trinidad and Tobago, acting in accordance with the advice of the President of the Court, continue in office for such period after the end of his term as may be necessary to enable him to deliver judgment or do anything in relation to proceedings that were commenced before the term of office expired. So
this is other than designated. This means those appointed.
That means Deborah Thomas Felix.
That
everybody else
appointed, right?
Everybody else, and the reason it is appointed designated is because you would never left your job,
right?
Okay, so you can't apply that rule to them because they never left their job.
Just to say straight, as you were just saying, this applies to Deborah Thomas Felix situation, right? It basically says. So there's a provision to allow her,
Section 4.9,
to finish hearing matters that's in front of her.
And remember I gave you Marcia Ayers Caesar example. I know as a fact that judges who are being considered for appointment to the Supreme Court, one of the things the Chief Justice needs to know, how many, if you are coming from elsewhere, from the Magistrates Court, for example, as she did, she was the Chief Magistrate or some other court. How many matters, do you have any matters outstanding? Okay, because if you have matters outstanding, I cannot appoint you until you have completed those matters. And you saw what happened with Achille Charles.
Yeah.
Because of that, he spent 5 years of his life waiting, had the matter part heard before Marcia Ayers Caesar, and because of what transpired, it started afresh before the acting one. And after 2 years, they determined that the police evidence was not adequate enough and he should never have been there. But that is not, we're not dealing with Achille Charles.
Yes.
What I am really trying to say, and the Law Association's point is this, that this appointment of judges from the very get-go, the appointment and reappointment should not be in the hand of the president, because the president is acting as cabinet, and the cabinet is the government. And most of the matters, or many of the matters, in which it's not just one person who got fired, but it's thousands of workers you're dealing with, you can see there may be pressure on them to not get on the wrong side of the government because they may not get a reappointment. We're not saying that is so, but the perception will be there.
The perception. This is something key I want to highlight. It's not that the new president is bad. It's not that they could not have had proper reasons to appoint a new president. Again, it's similar to Mr. Garcia. It's not as though we're saying he's undeserving of his status as senior counsel.
No, we're not.
But the perception of the situation undermines the integrity of the entire thing.
And that is why when you become a Supreme Court judge, there's security of tenure. They can't move you like that. Because a lot of matters that will become before the High Court and the Court of Appeal will involve state-related matters, okay? And if you are sitting there and believe that when your appointment comes to an end, if you don't have that security, that you'll get on the wrong side, all they have to tell you, you're not getting reappointed, your term finished. And that is what they're saying. You don't do it. The reason you do that is you want judicial independence.
Yes.
So what they're saying is
it's supposed to be that way.
But it
judiciary
has to be,
is supposed to be independent.
Yes, as you can imagine, the pressure you will be under. I mean, subliminally, unconsciously, subconsciously, call it whatever you want, right? So when it comes to the industrial court, when your term of office comes to an end, the 3 to 5 years, you don't have, it's not a life thing. It's not like Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court. You have a term. And when it's reappointment time, if they're not happy with you for whatever reason, they just don't reappoint you.
And I would say, too, the optics of the whole situation is poor. Even the minor detail of, well, we told her over a phone call 2 days before.
No, it is. You know what is the key? Which is what I don't want your listeners not to take away. Why it questions that there's something behind that we don't know, having been in government. Something we don't know. Something we don't know. But why I have concerns, it's bad enough that you did it that way. I mean, that shows a disrespect to me.
It's unprofessional.
And to do it that way is kind of disrespectful. You know, why you didn't wait? That alone.
Unless they literally made this decision on the fly.
Okay,
which
please.
It's not believable.
All right,
it's not believable.
And if they did, it's sheer incompetence. So either way, that's bad. But that's not the point. The point is this. She was sitting, hearing a matter with the government NIB, in which Kerwin Garcia was the lawyer for the NIB and is the husband of the president, right? And you have in the Act, Section 4, notwithstanding, other than a designated, because you have not left your job, right? any other person, you girls should be allowed to stay on until you have finished your judgment and delivering judgment. So to remove her the way they did, so suddenly, just 2 days before the term ended, by a telephone call, maybe she was out of the country, so maybe they had to do it that way, I don't know. But the point was, that is the president's husband, and it is not the norm, or should not be the norm, that if you have judgments, that you should be allowed to complete them before your term comes to an end, because the IRA does consider that, and I do know when it comes to the Supreme Court that you should not come on the Supreme Court at all if you are a judge in another tribunal.
High Court?
Yeah, High Court.
Right.
You know, like if you were in the Magistrates Court,
yes, of course,
Industrial Court, or whatever court you might have been in before. Don't come and apply for this job, and then we have to hear you have about 5 or 6 matters outstanding. What are we going to do? Look what happened. All those matters had to start de novo again. Who is the one that suffers?
Exactly.
And so the point I'm making at the end of the day, this is the point I'm making. I started by saying fit for purpose. I am making no allegations against our president. She did not appoint herself, but she took the appointment. And she had to have understood that there is going to be consequences to making that decision. And it didn't take very long, within a matter of months, first with her husband as senior counsel, and I mean, how did that look? And secondly now, with this Deborah Felix issue, when the Constitution, when the IRA seems to contemplate, let you finish a matter, and your husband, President of the Republic, is representing the state against the Public Service Association. And that is why I started by saying, and I hold it, you have to look at fit for purpose. What the Constitution of our country contemplates. It does not mean that the Queen comes at the beginning of Parliament, says something lovely, and then when it's Christmas time, she says something lovely. You are not that kind. But you know what you have done? In my respectful opinion, you have compromised your office. You have lost a lot of credibility with people. And I think you are very quiet. We don't hear from you. And I think you don't want to say anything, because maybe you give the impression like, well, we don't hear from you. And maybe you feel more comfortable to tell us about tea parties and about children, things with children. And excuse me, I don't think that is what you were put there for.
And I'll just say this, the matter being heard with the Revenue Authority, it seems one that the government has a vested interest in pushing through. Because it's so important, folks, it's not unreasonable to ask the question, did something go on there to try to ensure that they got a favorable outcome? Not saying that I think that
they got a favorable outcome.
Well, they changed the president of the IC. No, I'm talking about the matter still being heard.
No, but that's not it. That's before. Is that before the Industrial Court or the Supreme Court?
No, it's the Industrial Court.
You sure about the Revenue Authority?
Yes. Because it's a labor matter. Okay. Whereas the union is saying that you're changing the terms and conditions of the workers by saying you could take on jobs with the Revenue Authority, and there's a whole lot more technical than that.
To be honest with you, though, when I was minister, that was the model that we had advocated. No, well, that's not what they came up with initially, which I did not support. Shut down everything. But I'm only one member of cabinet, and cabinet has to make a decision. But definitely the model of, and there's a reason for that. It's not just.
I'm not against the idea, you know. I'm just saying that the government seems to have an interest of the case, so it's not unfair to ask these questions, right? At the end of the day, it's just about optics.
Happened, and you see, this is what happens when you take that job. That's what we're trying to see. That's what we're really trying to see.
But you know what's troubling? What's troubling? It seems as though they don't understand the optics.
No. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm not going to agree with you.
Well, they're walking.
They understand the optics, but they do not care. Because you know why? Because this is my genuine opinion. People of Trinidad, this is what I think. I think as they sit down there, they say, you know, they don't like us. They know they don't want me here. They don't want this one. They don't like this one. They can't stand. They know that. But there are a lot of them not voting for anybody.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And once they're not voting for anybody, They believe that they will win regardless. That's what I believe, and because they believe that they will win, they feel until they get a strong third-party force, as it stands now, they do not think that no matter how much you dislike them, and no matter how much you're unhappy with them, they believe that what matters at the end of the day is the outcome of a national election, and if in the national elections they win,
it don't matter. Yeah, it
well,
don't matter.
Too bad.
Well, I mean, I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that at all. But well, we will have to end it here. We have to take a break. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines. We want to hear from you, the viewer, on this and other topics that you choose to speak about. Stay tuned to Talk About. We'll be right back.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Let the Home Store turn your house into a home you love. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. And just for you this Christmas, come check us out for great gift ideas and all your Christmas decorations.
6 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Chaguanas, C3 Center Branch, Christmas Store at C3 San Fernando, and Eastgate Mall, Trin City.
Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
It comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And as we always say, the conversations off air, sometimes you wish they were on air, sometimes you know they can't be on air. But there was another topic that Karen and I both noted that we just did not have time for. And perhaps at some point later on, the next time she appears, we'll get into that topic because it speaks more directly to the economy. However, with that said, of course, if you have a guess what it is and you want to ask a question on it now as we open up the phone lines, you can do that. Maybe we won't necessarily go into the depth of whichever topic you want to speak about.
If it's economy, because the economic bulletin was only released yesterday or day before.
But, you know, we could answer specific questions that you may have on that, on the topic that we spoke about before the break, the topics that I spoke about before, or other matters in the news. The numbers are on your screen. You could call in and have your say with regards to whichever topic you want to have. I know that 'tis the season to be busy with personal these needs, and of course a lot of you watch our PM rebroadcast. However, I mean, those of you, I know there are also a lot of people who watch the show in the mornings and don't call in, and I want to encourage you, call in. If you just want to call in to spread some Christmas cheer, also do that as well.
Could we need it?
Now, in the meantime, I found it interesting. This wasn't necessarily planned, but one of the stories that I spoke about, I don't know if you saw, the MP Keith Scotland, who is the head of the Joint Select Committee of National Security, was the lead attorney of a plaintiff in a malicious prosecution matter against the state. And I do wonder, to me, that seems somewhat strange, because he's offering evidence about what the president is doing bad and wrong for his client to win his case, which he won. And I do wonder, you're also on the Joint Select Committee of National Security. You actually have a platform by which you could highlight and potentially try to do things about these issues. And I'm not sure, I mean, to be fair, a lot comes out in the Joint Select Committee meetings that might not have come out otherwise, right, when direct questions are asked to the individuals before them. But I just found it weird that here he is now, he's a member of the government, technically representing someone against the state. Is there anything, legally speaking, as a lawyer, is there anything about that?
No, there's nothing legally. I know there's what they call the Chinese wall and the very Bolkia, a case called Bolkia, way back, and against KPMG. And so in England, they're really much stricter about if you've acted, if anybody within your firm, even if they are in a different division and department physically, not there, but if you have acted on behalf of that person, the firm it is, then you are sort of debarred from it because they think of conflict of interest. But the conflict of interest circumstance, I don't think it applies. I would like to think that Mr. Cotland would add value by his own experience. He's not representing a client against the state, you know what I mean? And I'm not looking at it the same way because, for example, in conveyancing, I think some countries are stricter than we are, but if it is, well, especially if it's a large development, the law firm can act for both the purchaser and the vendor. Because, you can't in large developments, but there are certain rules that have to go, and definitely discouraged where it's an individual thing, because of course it could be a conflict of interest, but there are rules that tell you that you must tell the person to get independent advice. You must make sure that they take the whatever the sale agreement or whatever it is, have someone else look at it, give the advice to have someone.
I mean, it was interesting though, the MP/attorney, he had strong things to say about the prisons.
But that's his job. Listen, when you are under the Code of Ethics, you have a duty to represent, first of all, the duty to the court as an officer of the court, and secondly, you have a duty to your prior client.
I'm just saying,
that's what it is.
He has some strong criticisms of the status quo on the record, but we have a caller from Cunupia. Let's take the call. Good morning, caller, you on here?
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
I recently started looking at your program, and I find it very interesting. You all have some good people that coming on. When I say good, that knowledgeable and giving knowledge to the people in Trinidad and Tobago. Anyhow, talking about the president there, we must not forget that when she was the House President, the first thing she did when she get the opportunity of Jahalawal to remove him, this is the thing that from day one shows the kind of president we ought to have. And thank you very much. I will call back one of these days again.
Yeah, but yeah, right. And the thing about that example you use, I don't think she had any choice. Section 80 says that she has to follow. So I'm not going to use that, but that is the reason why it's not good for her.
It still goes back to perception.
Perception,
It
started early. It started early.
The perception is...
Yeah, and she can't, I don't think she could recover. Eh? That's my opinion, anyhow.
We have a caller from St. James. Good morning, caller. You on here? Morning, caller. You on here? Hello? You on here, caller?
Hello?
Morning. You on here?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me? We can hear you, caller.
I think he has his phone or something on.
I'm not too sure. He can't hear us. Hopefully he's listening to his phone.
But just tell me to talk because
Caller,
we're hearing you.
if you can hear me, it doesn't seem that you could hear me, but if somehow you can, you could go ahead and make your contribution.
Yeah.
We can't hear you.
We can hear you.
I guess we lost the call. All right. If you're still connected, let's disconnect. Caller, if you can hear me, this has happened in the past where people will call in and they can't hear us, so they don't know what to do. That's fine. You could call back. Generally speaking, the second go around, for whatever reason, the issue does not come up. So we have St. Anne's on the line. In the meantime, good morning, caller. You're on here.
Hi, good morning to the two of you.
Morning.
I have a couple of comments to make. The first concerning that courts debacle that happened a couple of days ago.
Right.
I waited a couple of days to see if, in fact, two critical points of information would be released. They haven't, which is not to say they won't, but I found it curious that while courts took the effort to discourage people from doing private transactions in their parking lot, I found it odd that they didn't say whether the police officer who was accused of shooting those two people dead, if he was an employee of theirs. I found that strange and curious. Also, the TTPS said confirmed he was a police officer, but they didn't say whether he was a regular police officer or an SRP. These are two critical details that are lacking from this whole thing, and I long to see when it is going to be released to the public. Secondly, Massey. The Massey issue where that individual revealed certain questionable details about the training of Massey staff in North America. I think she knew exactly what she was doing. Mm-hmm. She's not a little girl. She knew exactly what she was doing in terms of revealing that information. She knew what the outcome was going to be, because she said she had passed it to the leadership of the company, and she appeared to think that nothing had come of it. But it tapped into something that, because she claims that her concern was the way money was being wasted, particularly the foreign exchange. Now, that reminded me of something that happened with the former central bank governor when he revealed to the country something that he was ultimately fired for, which was who was consuming large amounts of foreign exchange. Now, for reasons of confidentiality and privacy, the state said that he should have been let go because he did something wrong there. But I think Trinidadians, we buy, we spend, and we don't have a connection with how our foreign exchange is being used, primarily by these mega companies. And it's quite distressing, actually, to know that we don't make a connection between the oil and the gas, the foreign exchange it earns, what happens to our economy if there's a drop in those prices, and what part we play as citizens in terms of our expensive habits. And while it may have been an illegal act, according to the state of what he did by revealing that information, I think it gave us, in a very singular moment, an idea of how much money is going right out the door in terms of our consumerist habits. And I think that was an important lesson.
Can I just say one thing before you go to the next caller? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you... Sorry. My apologies.
St. Anne's, are you done?
One other thing.
Quick, because we have a caller meeting.
Show is a rarity in public broadcasting in this country, in that it's driven primarily by opinions. It's a politically related show in the most part, although you do discuss other topics, but it's opinion driven. And most broadcast journalists in this country, I don't think, follow that avenue. They tend to have a more or less a middle of the road approach to politics. I think it's probably the reason why you have not been successful in attracting many sitting ministers to your program, because it's so opinion driven. They don't want to challenge. They don't want to compete with a voice that's going to shout them down or argue them down or suggest that there's an alternative. They just want you to buy into them as ministers, comfort in their office, overseeing their ministries, and that's a challenge for a lot of them, and that's why you probably won't see very many of them on your show.
And the Prime Minister told them they can't come on.
I would just say this, we've had a couple of ministers on Talking Point, and we've never, thanks, Kola, we've never hit them all that hard.
The Prime Minister told them not to come on, just in case.
To be fair though, the ministers that we did have were, in my opinion, some of the better ones, right? Let's just say if we had the former AG on when he was AG, that might have been a very different show.
And I won't just say him because it'll be really but just to say this, that I think what we can conclude from what you said, there's more any motor than pestle, and I think you're right.
Arima, sorry, on the line waiting. Good morning.
Sorry, Arima, yes.
Morning, caller, you on the air?
Hello, morning. You
morning, morning. Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Hello? Caller, can you hear me?
Nah, this line ain't working.
Oh boy. All right, we lost Arima.
St. James.
St. James on the line. Good morning, caller. You on the air?
Encourage Arima to take a call back.
Yes. Mornings, caller from St. James.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I am a bit, sort of flabbergasted. The President of the Republic was once the President of the Senate.
Yes.
Now, she had the air of many people up in the higher echelon. I was wondering why is it she had to wait until she became the President of the Republic to make a suggestion to both sides of the House that they should get together to talk. Now, I try to understand why is it that she had to wait all the time, and people take that as a novel idea and running around, with all sorts of things. And I know when she made that idea, I know the talk would not come about.
Mm-hmm.
I am still trying to understand why she waited until that time when she was appointed to make that call for the talk. I am confused.
But don't be confused. She's trying very hard to elevate her image, which I think has been severely compromised. And she's trying to come across as kumbaya, everybody, and I don't think it's working. Trinidad is not foolish. Trinidad and Tobago is not foolish. They may not say anything, but they have their opinions.
A caller from
Arima?
From St. James. Well, caller from Arima. If you can, still try again, call back, and we'll see if we can be connected. But St. James, that comment, I think she said it because she's the president now, and it felt like this is something that I have to say, that I could not say as president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House could say, like it was a function, like what Karen said, It wasn't that it's something she wanted to say. It's just one of those, well, we say it. And I do wonder to some extent if it might have caught even the government off guard, because I don't think anybody wanted these talks. That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah, but now they have to go through the motions.
But now they have to go through the motions.
But you have to go through. You don't understand?
Yeah, but to me, I'm sorry, but when you dig a step deeper, the motions, you could tell that it's just going through the motions or something that is like, and it's even more insulting.
But don't you understand? They reach a point that they do not care what you think.
Well, that is true.
I'm telling you, they do not care. They are doing their whatever it is, getting the statistical data together, and they're saying we're really not popular,
We had
but
a caller.
we feel we win.
We had a caller call in, and it was, in a way, it was a little bit heartbreaking because it kind of went against all the things I've been trying to encourage people to do, and that is to be more involved. And the caller basically said, I'll just take it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. This is about property tax. He'll just accept whatever it is. His frustration has reached that point. Lord only knows if that's with regards to the rest of the government and the wider population. We have Arima back on the line. Hopefully he can hear me. Good morning, Arima. You're on the air.
This time.
Yes.
Yeah. Now this morning, I want to bat here for Permanent Secretary Myers, because when he told the Prime Minister a while back that patients could not have processed everybody's back pay by Christmas, he was sent on leave and then to be transferred when he come back out. So I want to bat for him for trying to do the right thing.
Okay.
I know it has gone unnoticed in the public domain, but nonetheless, the this is the actions, these are the kind of actions that we need as citizens. Because the reality is, when you look at the staffing levels in some of our government institutions, they are way below the required standard. But still, these people are expected to go above and beyond the call of duty. I want to thank everybody who assisted in the processing of our back pay, and hope that they too have a Merry Christmas. And let us hope that things change in the coming year. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say that was very good of you to, you say bad for him, because a lot of times people say it's quiet and they, we wouldn't have known that, but you know why? That then tells you why people are staying quiet in this country, because they know they'll pay a price. And if that's what you've said is accurate, then it can't help but conclude or come to the conclusion that's exactly what he did. He's paid a price for how dare he do that. He hauled over the coals, sent on leave, and put somewhere else. So, and that goes with the Massey lady. You know, I have a feeling that a lot of persons like that who are just so simply afraid to speak out. And then they say enough is enough, and they're willing to risk whatever it is because of their own personal desire at the end of the day, that they do what they consider to be the right thing, even though they know they will pay a price. And those people have to be admired.
I'm not going to lie, with regards to that Massey thing, I looked up the training consulting firm's website.
Yeah,
okay, we have a caller from West Mornings, and I'll get my anecdote after. Good morning, West Mornings, you're on the air.
Hello?
Morning, you're on the air.
Yes. Yes, good morning. First of all, I want to thank both you and Mrs. Karen Teixeira for that contribution. I think Mrs. Teixeira properly explained the role of the court and the importance of choosing a president. The point, however, I wanted to raise is the role of the private sector. I get the impression that the private sector has difficulty with the former president, and that may be the reason why the president sought to remove her. I'm not sure it is just on one particular case and you know, the role of the president's husband in that particular case.
Right.
I just wanted to get some comment on that because I'm not clear in my mind.
No, that's what we said at the
what
beginning.
made that decision. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and I think that's what we kind of alluded to, is that the decision to have her removed or not be reappointed, and given what I read out from the act itself, clearly there's more going on behind the scenes, whether it is the state enterprises now fighting, whether it's the state enterprise, whether it's the private sector, but somebody's not happy with her being there. That's my conclusion, and that therefore they made a decision not only to remove her, but do it in a way that was very embarrassing to her.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not unfair to say that one will say that the way it was done, and I suspect very much she is very well aware of all that's going on. I don't know if she's back in the country, but there is much more to this than just end of her thing. It was not done the right way, and it does not reflect well on our President of the Republic. But that's what you get when you take on that job.
I'll just say that I'm not aware of private interest matters before the industrial courts.
Right.
That is to say, like, I don't think we get much of that in the news as opposed to what the unions are with regards to the public sector and those things, right? So I'm not aware. And maybe it's there and I
look
just
at
missed
Massey
it,
let go a lot
right?
of people, a lot of the banks let go a lot of
That's
people.
true, but I don't think we necessarily heard about industrial court actions on the matters. So maybe it's a blind spot in our media reporting, of which we are part of that. I'm not saying
no, but it's
other
also
houses.
too, a lot of these matters are not heard it doesn't reach the industrial court, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of opportunity for conciliation, even at the industrial court level.
Okay.
So and who hears that are judges of the industrial court, but not to the labor. Minister of Labor is Minister of Labor with the conciliating officers. But when it reaches the industrial court, it doesn't mean it has to go in the court for hearing.
Right.
It can give it another chance, and you can do a conciliation, which will be overseen by a member of the industrial court.
So Paul, all that to say is that we're just not aware as much with regards to that side of the equation. And with regards to the Massey situation, I'll just say this. I checked up what the training is purported to be. And in my opinion, and it's very, very, very on the outside looking in, I don't have all the details, but it seems like a lot of marketing and a lot of nice packaging, right? And a lot of buzzwords. There might be some practical.
And why did they get that contract?
Psychological and therapeutic or whatever, right?
Please.
But not anything
New age.
Right, but the actual practical science that's there is not anything, some groundbreaking secret source.
You know what you have to
right?
tell yourself? Why would Massey Stores get a contract for that new age mumbo jumbo to send people?
I mean,
there's something more in immortal than the person. That woman had enough of it.
Let me put it this way. Let me put it this way.
She bustified.
When a phone company has a feature, what at least in the past when it happened is Apple will take the same feature, market it more grandly and charge a big premium for it, right? That's what it seems like. I could be wrong. Please don't sue me.
Yes, true.
But that's what it seems like.
That's what she said.
Okay, so I don't know if there's crystals and lights in the training. I just know that there was a lot of buzzwords
and new age.
And at the end of the day, like
hippie.
I would like to think we could do some of that training down here. It doesn't seem to be that unique, right? All right, thank you, Karen, for joining me today.
And Merry Christmas, everyone. I won't see you today next year.
This is.
Again, what's her name? What is the name of the lady? I say Busty Files. Sorry, but let us know what was going on behind the scenes and had enough of it. What was her name?
Oh, with Massey?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I just read this before I came on the show. To you, a lot of kudos. It takes a lot of courage for you to have done that. And whether they just try to make you look as though you're talking nonsense, I know the people of Trinidad and Tobago believe what you said. Even if not all is true, they believe a lot of what you said was true. So, Massey, you have a hard fight to fight that one.
She apparently is still the general counsel of Massey. She is. That's what they said. It is reported. That's what they said, right? Angelique Parasot Potter. I have butchered one of her names. I am very sorry.
Potter is easy though, right?
Potter, yes. But yeah, I mean, listen. At the end of the day, if she's wrong, let's see the receipts. Let's see some transparency to show that she's wrong. Otherwise, you can't just. Let's have an investigation either way to see who's right. Why not? That's
how it should be, right? The trading, a lot of people sold all their Massey shares,
Well, I mean,
what that says is that there's belief and credibility in what she said. And there are people who probably know what she's saying has some truth in it.
Folks, crazier things have happened. But we will leave you with that. It's a good day if we make it a good day. Something like my co-host always says. Merry Christmas.
For me.
Stay safe.
See you next year.
And we will see you tomorrow morning. I will this time.
I'll see you next year.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I am Rondell Donowa, and you are watching WESN, the content capital.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
immigration law when it was put to a vote yesterday at the National Assembly. And he's not the only one in the Macron ranks, with one quarter of the Renaissance MPs voting against this immigration law. The government spokesperson Olivier Véran said that there was no rebellion in the Macron ranks, and that people needed now to move forward and put this law behind them, that some changes might be made to the law later on. First, it will be looked at by the Constitutional Court, the highest court here in France. Olivier Véran, the government spokesperson, also saying that it was a brave decision to work on this immigration law, because they knew immigration is a subject that sparks angers, sparks fears also, but that it's this law the best way to protect the French people. It will help expel terrorists and foreign criminals, and also allow foreigners who are supposed to be in France on French soil to stay here and get social benefits. Olivier Véran saying that, and also saying there's no rebellion then in the Macron ranks.
Clovis Casali reporting for us there from the Élysée Palace. Now, it's not just French politicians who've been debating immigration rules this week. Today, EU negotiators said they had clinched a deal to overhaul the EU's asylum system. However, like the current French law, this agreement has been criticised by parties on the left, as Clémence Voller now explains.
It's a controversial migration agreement. On Wednesday, the European Union reached an accord on a new set of rules designed to share the burden and responsibility of hosting migrants more evenly among member states.
With this historic agreement, we are opening a new chapter of a Europe of migration that we want to be proud of. And the proposals we have tabled and are being approved today recognize that every member state has issues that need to be addressed on a comprehensive, holistic European migration policy.
The reform includes speedier vetting of irregular arrivals, creating border detention centers, accelerating the deportation for rejected asylum applicants, and the creation of an obligatory solidarity mechanism for countries under migratory pressure. It also aims to have member states contribute by either taking in asylum seekers or paying financial compensation, €20,000 for each person not relocated. The Italian Interior Minister, Matteo Piantedosi, celebrated Wednesday's agreement.
The approval of the pact is a great success for Europe and for Italy, which has always played a leading role in order to affirm a balanced solution so the EU border countries, which are particularly exposed to migratory pressure, no longer feel alone.
However, refugee rights groups have slammed the deal, calling it cruel and dangerous, warning it will create what amounts to prison camps at the EU's borders and cause more deaths at sea. The bill now needs to be formally approved by the European Council and Parliament before it can enter the bloc's law books.
Next, the leader of Hamas has made a rare visit to Egypt today amid renewed diplomatic efforts to secure another ceasefire in the Gaza war. Ismail Haniyeh, who lives in Qatar, not Gaza, is understood to be part of discussions to organise a pause in fighting in exchange for releasing Israeli and foreign hostages. The 10-week war has killed nearly 20,000 Palestinians and driven the vast majority from their homes. Reporting now from Jerusalem, here's our correspondent, Iris Makler.
It's the first time talks have resumed since the previous ceasefire collapsed. So I guess that's something, just the very fact of it's being held. There was also, meetings between Qatar, the US and Israeli leadership the day before. So that's yesterday and over the weekend. I think all of that, all of that lets us know that these talks really are going somewhere. They're being described in the Israeli media as intensive. The Israeli media is also reporting that Hamas wants a complete end to the conflict and all of the hostages to be returned, that kind of deal to be done. Israel is not prepared to end the conflict at this stage. They say they didn't start it. They'll end it when it suits them. And what they want is a temporary pause of some kind in return for the most vulnerable hostages. That means that means old men and women, ill and wounded people, and women and children. We'll see if any of that actually is delivered, but that's what's being discussed at the moment, and it's certainly an advance on anything that we'd heard before in the previous 3 weeks since the previous deal collapsed at the end of November.
Iris Makler for us there in Jerusalem. Now, it's a condition that affects more than 80% of pregnant women. Pregnancy nausea has long been considered a necessary evil, and thus little research has gone into it. But now American researchers have finally managed to pinpoint the cause of the condition, linking it to a hormone released while the fetus is growing. To tell us a bit more, our science editor Julia Seeger is with me. And Julia, first of all, it is worth emphasising that pregnancy, nausea and vomiting have long been trivialised by medics.
That's right, Nadia, because like many other illnesses, it was long considered as a psychological issue, as something that women were created in their heads, or even as a rejection mechanism of the pregnancy. So it did indeed delay scientific research in a big way, even though since the beginning of time, vomiting and nausea have actually been extremely common symptoms of pregnancy, and it's about 50 to 80% of women who suffer from it at one point in their pregnancy. Now, there is an extreme form of it, and you may have heard of it because the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton, actually spoke about it publicly, but it's called hyperemesis gravidarum, and here it causes severe vomiting 24/7. It's the leading cause of hospitalization among pregnant women. Now, there's another reason, Nadia, why it was so difficult to study this phenomenon, and it's because when women get pregnant, in an instant manner, there's so many biological changes that happen at once that is very hard to pinpoint the one leading cause. And so it's kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack.
That said, though, the culprit has been identified by these researchers, and it's apparently the hormone GDF15.
That's right. Well, there was already a study back in 2018. They had looked at the DNA of 53,000 women, and they had found a correlation between nausea and the amount of this hormone GDF15, that's right. And so this is actually a hormone that women secrete even when they're not pregnant, but what the study now shows is that it's also the placental unit, meaning the placenta and the fetus, that are going to secrete this hormone. And there could be an incompatibility between the type of GDF15 secreted by the mother and the type of GDF15 secreted by the baby. Now, there's another interesting point made in the study that can sound kind of counterintuitive, is that it's actually the women who have a low level of GDF15 before they get pregnant who tend to be more at risk of developing severe nausea. And the reason why here is that scientists think that it's this sudden exposure to GDF15 that creates the nausea. Now, one question that you may have is why, nature is quite perfect. So why would a fetus secrete a hormone causing nausea to its mother? Well, here it's believed that it's a way to protect the mother and the fetus from food poisoning, and that our ancestors may have needed this mechanism to survive and thrive, and that perhaps today it has lost its utility a little bit, like the appendix, for instance, which tend to create now more problems than it solves.
How fascinating, Julia. But I suppose what pregnant women out there really do want to know is, look, is there anything that actually works to treat the nausea?
Right. Well, there are a couple of things that can alleviate a little bit the nausea. So we tend to tell you, well, drink sparkling water or ginger ale, or acupuncture can actually help a little bit, but there's not one miracle treatment. But what's interesting is that this discovery is actually paving the way to a new therapy, and that could be desensitization therapy, because as I told you, it's perhaps this sudden exposure to the hormone that's creating the nausea. So theoretically, if you can expose a woman before she's pregnant with this hormone, maybe she's not going to react in such a violent way. So that's the idea, and it's actually been proved in mice, for instance. But the problem is we believe that it's not the only hormone that could contribute to nausea. So there's still a lot of work there. And one last thing, and I'm going to end with that, is that we know that it's secreted by the placenta, so that we know that it has a role to play in the development of the fetus. So it's going to be a long time before a drug actually hits the market to solve this specific issue because of this problem.
All right, well, fascinating to know a bit more about it. Thanks very much, Julia Seeger, for us there. Now, earlier this year, perhaps surprisingly, the US President Joe Biden said the construction of the border wall in Texas would resume. He said that financial decisions, as Congress had already allocated the money, were behind that. The White House, though, has also resumed direct deportation flights to Venezuela, which were suspended for years. It's all creating an ever more challenging environment for those who are trying to cross into the United States, as Wasim Cornet reports for us now from the border.
Firefighter Daniel Medrano has been patrolling the U.S.-Mexico border for more than 20 years. He believes continuing to build the border wall is not the answer.
The wall doesn't work. Is it a deterrent? Does it slow people down? Yes, it does, most definitely. I am not for illegal immigration by any means, but there has to be a more viable solution.
His team is called out to rescue injured migrants on a regular basis. The wall has encouraged them to take more risks than ever before.
You can see this is probably about 20 feet, 25 feet in this area. It is thick, but there's an impression that people can shimmy down this wall. And you can't. If you look at the top, there's a small ledge, probably about 2 inches. That's where we find a lot of people who are afraid. You know, they'll come over the wall on that side, stop right there, and then usually they'll fall from that ledge, and suffer some pretty traumatic injuries.
And if it's not injuries, it's the extreme heat that can be fatal. So far this year, authorities have found the bodies of 148 migrants in the El Paso sector alone. That's double last year's numbers. The 700-kilometer wall has been the subject of much controversy. Donald Trump made it a campaign promise, while Joe Biden vowed to stop building it with limited success.
Just in front of me, this is where the wall ends.
The back and forth has led to a mind-boggling outcome.
So you see that dog just crossed over without a problem. The Mexican dog, yeah. This is the United States, that's Mexico right there. Anybody can just start walking their way and traversing up the mountain. Now, will I get caught? Probably, because there's a ton of Border Patrol agents here. We just don't see them.
For decades, one crisis has followed another with no improvement. Last year, a record 2 million people crossed the border illegally. The city of El Paso is one of the main gateways into the United States. Dozens of migrants, both legal and illegal, sleep on the streets every night. Most of them come from Latin America. According to one report, 50,000 Venezuelans entered the U.S. in September alone. Amaryllis arrived here a week ago with her 3 children, including her 15-year-old disabled son.
It was very intense. Crossing the jungle on foot was hard. My son is unable to walk, so my husband had to carry him on his back while we climbed rocks and crossed rivers.
It took them 3 months to make the journey. The family fled a disastrous economic and political situation.
I came here to work and to give my son a better future, and also for myself. I have a tumor in my eye, and I want to look at possible treatments.
Why come here illegally?
To come here legally, we would have needed passports. Getting those costs about $2,000, which is money we don't have. I don't even have that kind of money for my own children, let alone for passports or for plane tickets.
When intercepted by border police, migrants are then released and randomly assigned to different states with a court date. There are NGOs that help them understand the complexity of the American legal system. This woman has a court date in 8 months.
¿A dónde va a ir usted?
A Denver.
Dígale, es que quiero que me ayuden a cambiar mi cita, mi dirección para Denver.
Mi dirección.
Vayan y pregúntenles.
Moverse.
Antes de moverse, porque si te vas a Denver y no regresas a esta cita, que tú ya la tienes aquí en El Paso, y nos van a buscar.
There's confusion here and fear too. These women haven't heard from their husbands who were detained 3 weeks ago.
So, ¿cuánto tiempo van a estar ahorita todavía aquí? Hasta que sea... ¿Y ustedes? ¿Sus esposos también están detenidos?
Sí, también.
¿Tu esposo también lo detuvieron? El de ustedes también. Venían juntos y los separaron.
Many NGOs feel abandoned by the federal government. Fernando, a staunch Democrat, is very candid about his disappointment.
You can see the results of Biden's current immigration policy. This is it. And let's remember that Biden promised to revamp this whole system. He promised fair immigration reform. He promised to revamp the asylum system, to rebuild it, to do away with Trump's strategies. And after 3 years already, we don't see that happening.
Texas's conservative Governor Greg Abbott has reacted to the government's inaction by deploying the National Guard to the border and installing barbed wire on its border with New Mexico, ignoring principles of free movement between states. The goal is to prevent migrants from entering Texas from a state run by Democrats. This military response has so far had very few impacts.
And that's a wrap then for this news hour. Thank you for watching and do stay tuned.
With mass layoffs and the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank,
the biggest bank collapse since the 2008 financial crisis, and it shut down today.
The startup kingdom has become a nightmare for some.
And within those 60 days, you need to find a job or get deported out of the country.
I work. I have a job. I pay taxes. So it's not like I'm a bum, you know what I mean?
But can the El Dorado of new technology recover?
People are afraid of where they're putting their money, but now is actually the time to get in because people are losing their jobs. I think this is just a natural ebb and flow.
Silicon Valley Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.